Welcome to another CO2 Monday in the Refrigeration Mentor podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Matthew. Today, I got a special guest, a good friend of mine. We go way back to our Emerson days. We kept in contact for years, and we continue to evolve ourselves. And I'm super excited to learn more from my good friend, Chris. Welcome to CO2 Mondays and Refrigeration Mentor podcast. How you doing?
I'm good, bud. Good to be on here. Thank you for the always warm welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So Chris McCarty, he's the director of business development for Zero Zone, and I've had a few people from Zero Zone on, but I'm really excited about this conversation because I know how passionate you are about refrigeration. I know how passionate you are for helping others and how you love bringing value to others. It's not all about you. It's all about how you can help your customers get what they need. And we talk about this all the time when we meet at events. Me and Chris, we meet each other at every event. We try to connect. And I'm super, super excited to learn about what's been going on at Zero Zone with you, as well as a bit more about your story a little deeper. So why don't we dive into that a little bit, Chris?
Yeah, again, appreciate it, Trevor. I've been in this refrigeration industry for almost 24 years now, and I'm a second generation refrigeration guy. I came from somebody that helped start the electronic controls side of the world as it applied to refrigeration, and so I'm very thankful for my start. But when I got out of the Navy, I joined a little company called Novar, and really spent a lot of time in the field. I had to learn this trade from the ground up. And I'm so thankful for all of the mentors along my path, starting way back in 2000, or actually 99 when I was hired on. The first thing they did was gave me a plane ticket and say, go to Toronto. You're going to be up there to support a customer over the Y2K. And that was my first introduction into the world of refrigeration in my career.
I haven't heard that in a long time, Chris. Y2K. That was a big thing. That was huge. My sister worked for the government, and she had to work for 2 or 3, like a couple of weeks straight going up to it. And this is a big thing. Everything's going to crash when it rolls over. None of the computers are going to work. I haven't heard that in a long time, but man, that brings back memories. Good.
Yes, and I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, just I had to be a warm body up there, but it really instilled into me the support that we owe our customers is critical to the success of both company you're working with and the customer ultimately at the end of the day. And after about 8 to 10 years there with Novar, I took the opportunity to go out and worked with an EOR for a little bit, and then decided to join Emerson back in the day. So about in 2008-9, I joined Emerson and started really driving the customer focus here for a large account. And over the years, wore a lot of different hats, building out a team, building out the approach to a customer first mindset. And again, all of the mentors along the way have really influenced how I look at the customer relationship, and I hope to bring that more and more into the light.
Yeah, no, and that's so key in our industry because it is about relationships. It is about networking, and I say consistently, the more value you bring to others, the more value comes back to you. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
The more value you bring to others, that's how you grow, and that's how your whole career has been. You continue to grow to get better roles, to get the roles you want, you ask for, and people are offering you all these roles because you're bringing a huge amount of value to other people, and that's what you have to do out there. If you want to be the best, you have to bring the most value as possible to others. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you're at Zero Zone. You're the director of business development, and you've been there for just over a year, I think now.
Just under a year. Yep.
Yeah. So how's it been? What's been going on there? Because I know Zero Zone is growing, and you guys are making a mad push on a bigger market, and I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely. Zero Zone was always a company that I got to work with in parallel on lots of different projects. And so when I had the opportunity to join them, I knew I was joining a company that really, exemplified my values and how I want to do things. So I, took the opportunity to again join them about 8 months ago, and it has been such eye opening because I came from the world of electronics. We had all the work, to touch compression, to touch all the parts and pieces, but bringing it all together into a solution that is presented that aligns with the customer, aligns with contractors, aligns with engineers. It's absolutely it's been a whirlwind. I'm very, very thankful for it.
Yeah. And I'm seeing equipment out there. I'm training lots of people out there on CO2, and I'm seeing more and more zero zone equipment, which we're going to be CO2 equipment, which we're going to be talking about today. And I'm excited for you guys because this is a massive market that is coming to play in North America at this point. Still, people are like, oh, CO2 is growing. No, I tell you, each week CO2 is here and it's growing. I tell everybody, like, you got to start getting training. You got to come to the refrigeration mentor trainings. You got to go to the website, the YouTube channel, and learn about CO2 because it's not going anywhere, and it's going to explode with the amount of equipment going out there over the next 5 to 10 years. So just start preparing. And this is
You're
why
absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Everything that's been, somebody had told me once in a comment, was everything that's been done in the refrigeration space in retail, if you will, has to be replaced in the next 10 to 15 years. I mean, that's the reality of what's facing us, and Zero Zone has certainly put itself in a position to meet so much of those needs from our cases and our systems. It's absolutely great.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it because the last time, I think it's been over a year, I spoke with Adam, and definitely go check that other podcast out I did with Adam. See, I can't remember his last name right now. He's the director
This
of
is Lefty.
Yeah. Okay. And go check that out. Check that podcast out because we dove into it. Check it on the YouTube channel actually, because he had a lot of videos on the CO2 condensing unit you're working on, the transcritical systems, the secondary, the cascade systems you guys built and installed. So anyone out there listening, go check out the CO2 podcast list and watch that video. Why don't we dive into a little bit about Zero Zone from what you see? Because I see you got a couple slides up here, and I'll explain it to others that are on there. But why don't you dive into some of this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about Zero Zone. We've been in business for over 61 years, and our corporate and display case division is there in North Prairie, Wisconsin. And we have two other facilities, Waukesha and McWanago, which is where those three. But then, our refrigeration systems division is there in Ramsey, Minnesota. And we have the newest addition to our facilities there in Dyersville, Iowa.
Awesome.
And it's we had to move that out because of that growth that we're talking about and the need for more capacity as more customers come to us looking for solutions. One of the things that really defines Zero Zone is that personalized service and responsiveness to our customers. That's who we are and at the core of our values. Taking a step back a little bit more, is more and more of our customers are coming to us asking for more and more solutions. And how do we do this? And that's really how we just wanted to build it out.
Yeah. And I think that's important because listening to your customers is very important, but also helping them understand their needs in this time in the industry where it's changing so fast over the last few years. That's where you can bring the most amount of value because the customer is going to be asking for something, but maybe, and many times, especially in CO2, there is better solutions than they even know about with different strategies now. Are they looking for heating? Are they looking for air conditioning? Are they looking at a full solution package? Are they just looking for low temp, medium temp? And I know this is where you sit and you listen and get the best understanding of what the customer is looking for. And I know you're an expert at that. Do you want to talk a little bit about when you're with your customers on what you're listening for and how you're taking that back to your team to help develop a solution for your customers looking for CO2?
Yeah, I mean, it is about that customer journey. It is, the topics, you could talk about them forever, but when a customer comes to you and says, this is what we're thinking about, is, okay, early engagement. You have to have that early engagement with your customer first and foremost. It's critical that, all the representatives from the customer to the EOR to the manufacturer to the contractor is all identified early in that process. You have to have transparent communication, and that is just open channels of communication, good news, bad news, talking with them and making sure that we are completely aligned. You have to have some shared project vision in what the ultimate success looks like for those projects. And you do that by having the conversation with those customers early on.
No, and I think that is key. Is that, and I keep talking to more and more manufacturers, end user retailers, and contractors. Everybody needs to be on the same page in the same room, because I've been seeing certain areas and certain people where the contractors left out of the conversation, and all of a
Yes.
sudden there's major issues on a job. Because you could be going into an area. Yes, my guys are ready to do this work, but they worked on CO2 for years, but they actually only worked on subcritical or cascade systems,
Mm-hmm.
not transcritical, which is it's kind of a different ball game. And this is where it's important to have the contractor in that conversation so they can put their input, because the contractors that I'm dealing with and working with and training with, they understand CO2. But when they get a piece of equipment that, okay, we got full on adiabatic cooling, but we're in 100% humidity the whole time, you don't really need that solution, and this happens out there.
Yes, it
So
does.
this is why I really believe you need the contract, you need the manufacturer, you need the end users, all there to have a conversation, because a lot of things that I'm seeing is one big thing. And this has been, I think, over the last 20, 30 years, been just pushed by the wayside: maintenance, preventative maintenance. Oh, well, CO2 systems, they cost more money because of maintenance. Well, HFC still needs maintenance. No one just didn't do it, and it just costs a lot more money, and people are just turning a blind eye to that. You know what I mean? Like, systems
Absolutely.
needed oil changes, but nobody just didn't do it. It costs too much money. Well, you got to bring the value, and that's when the contractors in there say, well, this is the price right now for these maintenances, and work together. You know what I mean? Build that plan together. So here's our maintenance plans and packages, and that's where you have less issues down the road. Because when a CO2 system, and you know it as well, because you guys got hundreds and hundreds of systems out there, that if that system is designed, set up, and installed correctly, started up correctly, you're not going to have any issues with it.
Yeah, we have certainly experienced that. You can see here, this is a CO2 system we recently, on the right side there is a CO2 system that we currently and recently installed. It is, one of the feedback things that we got back from that is it was such a smooth startup. And this is a dual temp transcritical booster system here. It was the effort that was put in up front. The checks, the rechecks, the communication, the contractor being involved, and it was as smooth a startup as you can imagine. So all of that plays into that ultimate success of these systems. It's one thing to design them and engineer them and all this, that, and the other, but it's that educate or that execution that will define whether it's going to be successful or not.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, because once again, technicians that come into my program, contractors that come into my program, and they get to look at the system, they come through the program, I teach them things, and then they go out and do the field startup with someone from Zero Zone or from one of the other CO2 manufacturers. They can talk on the same playing field as that field startup guy, and they can ask different questions than just asking like the basic questions, which is good. And that's what you need those technicians to kind of challenge that field startup guy, and vice versa, so they're both building their knowledge together for a smooth startup. Because if you don't ask the question on that startup and you're thinking about it, did we really set up that high pressure valve or not? And then that's where you get out all the bugs, instead of waiting and, okay, well, we had a pop off, now we didn't check that. And sometimes that happens, right?
Sometimes it does. Thankfully, it didn't do it on this one.
Yeah.
That was, it was a great project. But the other piece to that is, once you get in that field, is how do you take that feedback back from the contractors, back into the manufacturers, back into the customers, so that everybody has that constant feedback of how do we get better together. I think is something that I think we can all work on.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. And I tell technicians all the time, is when they're working on someone's equipment and there's an issue, you don't need to complain and cry about it. you come up with a solution, because the manufacturer's not going to be there at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're on an issue. But you don't say it's garbage and this and that. Sometimes the end user specs that you guys have no involvement, like you can't do anything. I'm not talking about this job, but this is what they want, and this is what we have to provide, because that's what the customer's saying. We highly suggest to go this way, but maybe not. But as a technician, you want to come up with a solution. That helps you as a manufacturer get a better understanding. What did we do? What could we did better in this situation for the next time, and grow?
Yeah, that flexibility and problem solving mindset. That's what us as technicians, that's why we're there. But that communication back, that feedback loop is incredibly important. And how do we get better at doing that, I think, is something we all have to work on.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this install, this dual temp transcritical booster system. So I see a bunch of zero zone cases, and we'll dive into the cases too, because I want to learn a little bit more, because there are differences between HFC and CO2 cases, and the evolvement, the evolution of cases since 10 years ago for CO2 systems. And I know there's a lot to it, but let's talk a little bit about this project here. Was it medium temp, low temp? Was it hot gas defrost? Was it electric defrost? Electric defrost. Do you have E3 on it, microthermal?
Yeah, it's a Copeland E2 is
E2
on this specific one, with some Dixell drivers and stuff for the hot gas bypass, or the HPV and flash tank. Yep.
Oh, okay, so you're using the Emerson ones for that, is that correct? The iPro?
Yes, sir.
Cool. And then I see there's Copeland compressors on this, so both subcritical scrolls, I'm assuming, and then transcritical semis.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Digital variable speed?
Both, or excuse me, digital. Both 2 VFDs on this system here.
Okay, awesome.
Lead compressors, yeah.
Yeah, so that is awesome. So I got a question for you. How long did this startup take, this commissioning project take? Because you send out field startup guys to all your sites, is that correct? The CO2 sites, or most of them?
I mean, if the customer is in line with what success looks like here, and being early in the growth of CO2, I think it's important to do this as much as possible, is to do a startup. And we've done startups. I've done 300 plus startups in my career, and the more quality you can get there, the more things you can catch ahead of time. So many manufacturers and our customers are driving functional performance tests in the factories, so you can limit some of that on-site time, so you can get faster at remodels. But we spent about 3 days on site doing the startup. Wow. Which is quite normal. And for a typical, I mean, I can't speak for everybody in CO2 refrigeration startups, but we spent about 3 days on site. We worked with a contractor. We made sure that the right loads were brought on, to make sure that then the higher loads, the low temp loads, were brought on secondary. It provides a stable platform for the rack to start up on before you bring on, and all of that coordination really was key, I think, to the success of it.
Yeah, and this for anyone that's new to startup and commissioning a system, everything needs to be done in place before the manufacturer gets there. It's not their job as a field startup assist for the manufacturer to come in and do the work. All the pressure tests need to be done. All the everything needs to be installed. It needs to even have a charge started in it. All this stuff needs to be done before the manufacturer gets there, or you're just wasting a lot of time, because they got other jobs that they need to go to in their schedule when you come there. So just make sure they're not coming there to do the work for you. They're just coming to help look over your shoulder while you get that up and running. That's so key, because there are a lot of people that said, no, they're supposed to come here and do the startup. No, that's not your job, because you're not going to learn if someone else is coming there to do the work for you. So just remember that whatever manufacturer it is, that field startup person is just there to assist you. If you have questions, you run into a problem, and just help be your guide. That's the big thing.
Could have said any better.
Yeah. So let's dive into some of the cases. So I know you guys are renowned for your glass door cases. You've been installing cases since the 60s. designing cases from for a long, long time. What are some of the biggest differences from an HFC case, glass door case, to now a CO2 glass doors case?
Oh man, Trevor, that line's gotten a little blurry over the years as even HFCs have gotten more advanced, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I
exactly.
remember starting, way back when a case just had a single sensor. It was, and or maybe not a sensor at all, but
Yeah.
it had a single sensor in it. And now you've got HFC cases that have 20, or not 20, but you've got 8 or so sensors in it. You've got a valve, you've got superheat control, you've got more electronics in them, but it provides so much when you're able to take those steps into electronic controls. But from HFC to CO2, you certainly controls and electronics is going to be key, but you've got more valves. You've got sometimes you have different types of coils. Sometimes losing track a little bit, but there's I would say that is the biggest difference between what you would typically have as an HFC case, maybe without electronics, to if you're moving from that to a CO2, you're certainly going to have electronics, you're going to have some valves, you're going to have some isolation valves, you're going to have sometimes smaller piping in the cases. CO2 is just so efficient. That's one of the biggest things I've seen is how efficient it is at moving heat.
Yeah.
And depending on customers and the direction they're going, Cascade, liquid overfeed solutions certainly are different. They may not need all the electronics. They may need, different application or, coils or stuff like that. But those, your options in CO2, yeah, you got to really design the system to optimize pairing it with that rack that's out there, and how so much of the optimization that you can get from pairing new CO2 cases and the new refrigeration rack and all the things that go in it.
I have a question for you. So on your different glass doors, say we were talking about a 5 glass door system. So you got 5 doors, 12 feet. Do you guys do multiple coils in your CO2? Do you do one coil, or you get an option of either or?
No, we just have the one coil.
You have the one coil, so you'll have one case controller, one electronic valve, 3 to 4 to 5 fans probably. But the big thing, like you said earlier, is the sensors. Like, this is the game changer for CO2. People are like, oh, well, CO2 is less efficient. With all these sensors, it's making it so much predictable. So I keep telling people AI is already here in CO2. They don't see it, but it's going to start to change the system itself. And it's going to start to adjust to make sure that it's the most efficient, the most effective. That coil is flooded the most, so you're getting the most efficiency out of the coil with one of the highest net refrigeration effect refrigerant. You're getting the most capacity.
Absolutely.
And these systems, that they're just all in one. Everything can know what everything else is going on. And as AI evolves and predictive troubleshooting happens, it's going to really help the technicians out there.
Absolutely.
On your systems, I know that you'll install whatever your customers looking for, the controls, the valves. Your customers, you'll install anything, but I've been noticing that a lot of the ones that I've been training on, you have been using Dixell, you have been using some Copeland and EE3. I want to talk a little bit about the Dixell case controllers. Do you guys install them for your customers, or does that have to be field installed?
I would venture to say that the more you can get installed, at the case plant, if you will,
Yeah.
the better result you're going to have in the field.
100%.
I mean, we've gone down field retrofits, we've gone down, installing them at the case plant. And that was a lot of my journey previously, is how do you execute implementing electronics into cases and then making, a shorter window of a remodel possible. Getting to a plug and play scenario was always a goal that we always had in place. But no, we certainly would install them in the factory. They would certainly go through a functional performance test or an evaluation of electronics, valves, and such. And ultimately, what the customer receives in the field and what the contractor actually has to involve themselves with is, no programming. And, it's already pre-programmed. Valves are working, sensors are landed in the right place. Wiring terminals are clearly laid out, to making it as simple as possible to where these guys can move faster.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, mistakes happen to the manufacturer. I'm
Yes.
going to hear people reach out, oh, well, Chris said that they're all late. Of course, they're all in it, but sometimes there's a cross. This is why you do that startup and those checks. There's mistakes that do happen
Absolutely.
in there that you might, okay, this is the wrong thermistor. You got the air, the supply and the return mix up.
Mhm.
But that's our job to check and figure that out. There's, once again, don't need to be complaining and crying to the manufacturer. Mistakes happen. It's our job as technicians to find that stuff before the startup happens, before those service guys need to start taking over. That's the big thing. Our whole job as technicians on that install, that startup, and the commissioning is get it ready, not for the end user, get it ready for the other service technicians who are going to have to come back here. And the better you do the install, the commissioning, and the startup, that's the less that the service technicians have to come back.
Very well said.
Yeah, so you guys have you got up to 200, close to 200 transcritical installations. Let's talk about a few of them that you've been involved, because I know you've been involved in a lot, but you've been at Zero Zone for 8-9 months now, and you've been involved in this one. You said this was a seamless install. Let's talk a little bit more about the case side and how you guys like to roll out like your case setup, the installation for them, and how are you helping. One thing you already said is that you're installing all the sensors and the case controllers and the valves as much as possible. But how are you helping evolve this for them? So like for like install, maintenance, and service afterwards. Because one of the big things I hear is like we got help on the front end, like to get it up and running. But after the install is done, some people feel that the manufacturer wipes their hands, and I know they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And Zero Zone, I mean,
you're
every
absolutely right.
out
You're
there.
absolutely right.
What are some of the things Zero Zone's doing for their customers for that maintenance, for that service after that go to live date with the end user?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's an important question because I know our contractors, have that opportunity, and it doesn't happen all the time. But Zero Zone is really that responsive company. What we do is we set up. We certainly have a customer support line and a technical support that these guys can get in touch with, and it's make sure we have the information of what you're working on. Do those little things. Make
Yeah.
sure we understand. And when you call us up, it's not it's down. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you working on?
Yeah.
Uh,
So this is a good thing. What are the key things that they should have for that when they're calling up the tech support line to help you guys out the best?
Yeah, I mean,
Address for sure, for sure. Location would be one.
yeah, I mean, but it's the customer, it's the address, it's the case model number of what you're working on, what controller it is that you're working on, or again, the case model number is gonna, if it's any other things within the case itself.
Yeah.
I think
And
if you
then
have those three things, or those few things, we'll certainly be able to get that support to you. Again, our customer support, technical support teams are there to support our equipment, and that's
yeah, and it's important. So that's the big thing Chris said there. Just remember, you need the location, maybe the address when you're calling them up. If you're working on the rack, you need that model and serial number of the rack, because this helps them out. They can pull up the files, all the P&IDs, electrical wires. They can pull all the information up of that, so they're prepared. And then he says like the case model number, the controller that's in there, the valves in there, because if all of a sudden you say it's a Danfoss valve, but it actually was Sporlan in there who changed it, in the controller, so they get a better. Because this happens. I've seen it, you know what I mean? When you have to change something and get something up and running, you got to do that. And then as well as on the controller, maybe the version rate. You know what I mean? What version is version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Dixel? I just remember those ones there are sometimes tricky, but have that version rate. And when you have this information, you call the support line, and it goes for any manufacturer out there, from components to racks themselves. It helps them speed up the process for troubleshooting.
absolutely.
So this is a lot. So what are you really excited about for 2024 for you and Zero Zone, and what you guys are about to accomplish this year?
There is so much to do in our industry, and it's one of the most exciting times. Like you, have been in this for a long time. I've seen change. I think that's the one thing I'm most excited for is the continued change, the continued adoption, getting more people into our industry. that would be one of the most exciting things to ever accomplish. I think, you and so many others are doing a fantastic job at doing that. So, starting off this year with you, and it's going to be a great year, but, we are certainly prepared, and made the right investments and have an incredibly talented team to bring to bear in supporting customers and our contractors, our training, along with your training. That's really what this next year is going to be about in preparing and being a choice for our customers to utilize zero zone. Absolutely.
I love it. So you're heading to HR in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll see you there. So what are you excited about AHR this year?
It's been a little bit since I've been to AHR. This question of CO2, A2L, propane. How many people are adopting straight CO2? How many people are moving to H2Ls? I mean, all of the different pieces that go to what choices ultimately our industry has. I think we've still got a lot of growth in that, but CO2 is such a fantastic choice if it comes right down to it, because they really only have those three choices: propane, H2L, and CO2. So that's probably what I'm most excited about, is just seeing the more adoption, the more options, the technology that is going to be applied here for CO2.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I'm super excited about all that stuff, because it's exciting to see everything that's happening, and as it evolves, like even the A2Ls, I'm learning more and more about how you got to design the system. It's different, leak mitigation. You need all these other things that you need to think about, where it's still different in HFCs, because people say, oh, well, it's you're going from A1 to an A2L, it's the same. No, there's lots of differences. There's a lot of differences.
There's differences, folks. And,
yeah. So actually, let's dive into a couple of them. What are some of the biggest differences that you see with the A2Ls versus HFC?
I think it's a lot of unknown around the H2Ls, and some of our colleagues have done a fantastic job dispelling some of the notions around flammable, the pressures in CO2 and so on and so forth. Propane. It's funny that it's the limiting number in propane. What is it? 500 grams now?
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. I think it's 500, but
yeah, but we got 40 pounds of propane over in the hunting section. That's sitting over
there. Yeah. You go over to a retail store and there's walls of propane on it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts, Chris?
Again, Trevor, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and chat with you and discuss this industry that we're in. It has been a fantastic journey, seeing the evolution of refrigeration, and just glad to be part of it, and love to see where it's going to be going.
Yeah, no, I am super excited myself. How can people go get a hold of you, Chris, get a hold of Zero Zone if they want to find out more information about you and your equipment?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me anytime. My email and phone number are there. You can always contact sales at Zero Zone, or take a look at our new website, zerozone.com. Go out there. They've done a fantastic job of showing what Zero Zone is, and all of the parts and pieces that make up a fantastic company here. So
I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. And once again, invest in learning more about these different manufacturers. You may have never heard of Zero Zone before, but you got to go check them out, learn a little about them. You got to grow your knowledge to become better at what you do. And it's important to dive into that. Go check out their website. Go find out more. Reach out to Chris if you have questions. If you work on this equipment, you know what I mean? Because these are people that want to help. And I know Chris wants to help and bring value to you and others. Once again, if you enjoyed this, please share this with others. And I will see you at the next CO2 Monday. Thanks again, Chris.